Welcome to Mondays with Marie. This is our second Monday with Marie, and we are live. So very exciting. And so this Monday, what I decided to do was instead of looking at the questions beforehand and planning my answers, I have no idea what these questions are. They were emailed to me, as you can see. So let's just jump right into it, okay? So our first question is about International Girls' Day, which is actually this 11th, Wednesday, which is pretty exciting. And we have several posts that you'll be seeing around that. So I'm excited about that. So anyway, so the question comes from Carla V. How can companies contribute to empowering girls around the world? This is a really great question. What I will say is the first thing that companies can do is they can stop having the standard of promoting men right away and waiting for women to be ready. This happens quite a bit. Women get promoted when they're ready, and men get promoted in the sense of they have potential. And so we will work on their potential. We need to promote both based on potential. Women get to a point where they're so ready for the promotion, they've actually surpassed the promotion. And so now they're in a state where they're sort of bored by the work they're doing because they've been prepping for it for so long, and it creates this really negative experience. And so if we want to empower girls, we want to stop looking at girls have to have this and boys have to have this, and start looking at it in terms of how do we promote women? How do we promote men? The same way. That's how we're going to empower girls. Love that question, Carla. Thank you for that. What's one stereotype about girls that you'd like to bust right now? This is also from Carla. She had two questions. One is that girls are emotional and boys are not. We're all emotional. We're human. We have different levels of how we use our emotions and also how we work with emotions. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. So there is no such thing as girls are emotional and boys are not. We're all emotional. We're all human. So love that question. Thanks. All right. So Sarah B asked, how do you keep meetings engaged and productive? So one way that we keep meetings engaging and productive is that we actually create spaces for people to have really interesting conversations. We have rules on when we can have meetings. So what does this all mean? Because it sounds really fluffy and woo-woo. What it means simply is that when you have a meeting, it should not be about dumping information. Actually, I think today I have a post on save a meeting, send an email. When it's just an information dump, send it as an email. When it's really about having dialogue and conversation and debate, or moving the project forward through conversation, dialogue, and debate, then it should be a meeting. And if you're afraid that people are not reading your emails, one, make them shorter because people don't have that kind of attention span. Two, put something interesting in the email that has nothing to do, like this is actually one of the tips that I give in our Murder by Meeting program. When people ask me about emails and how no one reads their emails, I say to them, okay, so if no one's reading your emails, here's my tip for you. Put something funny in the email. And I actually tell you the story that I tell all the time, which now I won't be able to tell the story because I'm telling it publicly, but it's okay. I'll find a different one. So my running joke, and I actually used to do this with my team, is that I would put something really funny in the beginning, in the middle, or the end of the emails to force people to read my email when it was an information, sort of giving information. And so what I would say is next weekend, I'm getting married to John Stamos in the Greek Isles. Well, one, I'm already married, so I think my husband would be a little bit upset about me marrying John Stamos. My mother-in-law would not. That's a different story. She loves John Stamos, so she'd be okay with trading the sons in. But the truth of the matter is that by doing that, I put something silly nonsensical in the email. And then I would kind of walk around and go, can you believe that? To see who actually read the email. And then people would go back and read the email. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of forcing people to read the email because I know there's going to be something interesting in the email, as well as they're now getting this information. But when you are sending emails that are sort of informational, you want to make them quick bites. You want to kind of think of them as a PowerPoint where there's bullet points, there's the important information, that the subject line actually doesn't say, hi, how are you? But actually says, what's the purpose of the email? So that people know what to expect in the email. Because a hi, how are you? Or have a great day, or just wanted to say hi as a subject line makes people push that email to the bottom because I don't have time to read, hi, how are you? I want information. It needs to be quick. It needs to be digestible. So those are my email advice, and also how to make your meetings productive by not making them information dumps. Let's see. So ST, I don't know who ST is, writes, what are some creative ways companies can ensure that employees genuinely get switched off during the holidays? This is an interesting one because I've heard of companies actually turning off everybody's email so that they can't access their email when they're away for holiday. But the real way to do this is it starts with the leader. If you're a leader that's constantly sending out emails during the holidays, constantly working during the holidays, people are going to think that's what they're supposed to do. And that's what your culture is going to be built around, this idea of we have to work during the holidays. If you don't want people to work during the holidays, you as a leader, you need to not work during the holidays. You need to be that person that does not work, does not answer emails, that truly shuts down. And then the company will as well. Now, there's certain vocations that's just not feasible. If you're in healthcare, as an example, you can't really shut down. I mean, you can't shut down a hospital. People still get sick. People still need treatment. Things still need to happen. So if you're in that type of industry, what you need to do is make sure that people understand that when they are on holiday, that holiday is sacred. That holiday is important. You have to treat that the same way you treat a work day. And it has to be embedded in your culture, because there's an unspoken culture in the corporate world, not just the corporate world, in all of our worlds, that says if we're on holiday, we still have to be available for work. And you have to break that. So that's how you get people to do it. You start doing it yourself. You start emulating what it is that you want people to do. All right, let's see. Lisa asked, is there an appropriate business attire in the age of remote work? Yes, I think there is. So I'm wearing a nice shirt. And I think you shouldn't just wear a nice shirt and not wear a nice bottom. I'm actually wearing a skirt. And I think that's important because, one, it helps with the mindset, right? So if I'm going into a meeting or I'm going into work, I need to still dress for work. So I've been a remote worker for years. And before remote work was a thing. And so in that, excuse me, one of the things that I would do is I would always get dressed, because if I had to run out to a client, I was ready to run out to a client. And you still need to do that. I think you need to look at it as, I'm building that mental separation from when I close that door, that this is my workspace. And then when I open the door, I'm leaving work and I'm going back to the family, and you need to be able to dress accordingly. And I think how you dress actually puts you in that mindset. So I do think there is still a business attire. I still think it's relevant, Lisa. And I think that people need to recognize that it's important not to work in your pajamas, because it reflects how you are carrying yourself in the workday when you work in your pajamas. That's just my 2 cents on that. All right. And let's see. Oh, I have some how do you say questions. This is good. This is from, I think it's Jim Thomas. I'm not quite sure. It looks like it's Jim Thomas. How do you politely tell your boss that their idea might not have been the best one? Good question. So I like to use the term that's interesting. And so how I say it is, that's an interesting perspective. Have you considered, or have we considered? So making it a more general, have we considered, and then I put in what is the correct answer to that alternative. So that's kind of my way of doing it. I love that question. Anybody else have some ideas on that? Post it on this link for Jim Thomas, I think it is. So I love this question. And then I have another one. How do you correct someone who constantly gets your pronouns wrong without sounding petty? This is a really interesting one, and it's one that I think is really important for the day and age that we live in. First of all, I'm going to put a little bit of that onus back on you. This was not Jim. This was Anonymous, by the way. So Anonymous, I'm going to put the onus back on you. Walking into a situation, whether it's a business situation or out in the world, shopping, or any interactions we have with people, we are still in an environment where we look at people and we decide whether they are a Miss, Mrs., ma'am, well, however you want to phrase that, Mr., sir, however you want to phrase that. And so, one, you cannot be offended. And I'm sorry if this sounds bad, but you can't be offended if you haven't shared with someone what your pronouns are. I think part of, if you want to make sure that people are using the correct pronouns, then you need to start the conversation with that. Don't assume that that person's going to know what your pronouns are. And don't assume that they're going to ask you, what are your pronouns? Because again, this is something that's very new to all of us, including you. This is something very new. And so we want to make sure we upfront tell people what our pronouns are. This is kind of in the same vein of when people mispronounce your name, right? Like they haven't heard your name for the first time and they mispronounce your name. One, don't get angry. The reason why I'm saying don't get angry is because it immediately creates distance between us and you're not going to be able to educate that person. Two, you start off very politely by explaining my pronouns are, or my pronunciation of my name is, because you know that person doesn't know, so you want to start off. If they continue to do it, you want to continue to correct them. You're not being a nag. You're not being difficult. You're just correcting them. Now, if you see that they're continuing to do it out of spite, so if you've told someone my pronouns are they, them, and they keep saying, as an example, she, her, you can say, well, I understand that traditionally it's really comfortable to say she, her. My pronoun is they, them. That's how you phrase it so that they get that message that this is how you want to be addressed. Or you could just call me by my name. You can call me by my name. It's a very simple thing. It keeps life simple. So that's how I would address this person who's anonymous. I would say you are not sounding petty at all. So I love that you're thinking about that because you said without sounding petty. It's not petty. It's important for people to know what your pronouns are, but also it's important for you to make sure that you're starting the conversation not angrily, but by just explaining to them, these are what your pronouns are. Great questions. We're almost out of time. So we had like more questions, which is great. So I'll have to save those for next week, next Monday. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you spent with me today. I hope this has been helpful. And just for clarification, my pronouns are her, she, as an example. So again, for that last question. But in all seriousness, and I think this is a very serious topic, how we address people and how we show respect to people, it's really important. Now, especially because we're in a world of transition. And that's really the key, that we're transitioning from an old paradigm to a newer paradigm where people are choosing their pronouns. And so it's very important that we are respectful of those choosing a different pronoun than we're accustomed to, recognizing that this is a difficult transition for us. And I think we need to make sure that we're helping people through that transition. So again, great to see everybody. Thank you for coming. Hey, Tina, thanks. They were really great questions, actually. I'm really pleased that people had really great questions. So if you've got more questions, send them my way. Again, text, email, carrier pigeon, DM. I promise I will answer them each Monday with Marie. Have a wonderful rest of the day.